Look around you. Sugar is in your coffee, it is in your bread, it is in the sauce on your pizza, and it is in the dressing on your salad. Sugar is everywhere. Today it is cheap, abundant, and helping fuel a global health crisis. But this ordinary ingredient has a darker history than almost anything else in your kitchen. To understand how humanity became so dependent on sugar, we must travel into the past, back to a time when sugar was rarer than gold. This is the story of how one simple plant transformed the world. It helped build empires. It fueled the largest forced migration in human history. And eventually it began damaging human health on a global scale. The story begins more than 10,000 years ago on the island of New Guinea.
People there domesticated the sugarcane species known as Saccharum officinarum. For thousands of years, people simply chewed the raw stalks. They wanted the sweet juice inside. Sugarcane slowly traveled across the ocean to India. Around the year 350, a major breakthrough occurred. Indian chemists discovered how to crystallize sugarcane juice. They created the world's first solid sugar. They called it kanda. That word later contributed to the English word candy. Sugar was no longer only a plant that quickly spoiled. It had become a luxury product that could be stored
and transported.
Arab merchants carried sugar into the Middle East. They continued refining the production process.
But most Europeans still used honey to sweeten their food during the Middle Ages. European crusaders later encountered crystallized sugar. They called it sweet salt. In medieval Europe, sugar was so rare and expensive that people stored it inside locked boxes. Doctors treated it as a powerful medicine. They prescribed sugar for illnesses ranging from fever to the bubonic plague. It also became an extraordinary symbol of wealth. Kings commissioned enormous sculptures made entirely from sugar paste. The sculptures allowed them to display their power and fortune. European demand continued to grow. But sugarcane required a hot tropical climate. Europe needed suitable land, and it needed an enormous labor force.
In 1493, Christopher Columbus began his second voyage to the Americas. He carried sugarcane into the Caribbean. The climate was ideal. The soil was rich. European powers rushed to establish enormous plantations. Spain, Portugal, Britain, and France. Their plantations spread across the Caribbean and South America. The Europeans had the land, but sugarcane required an extraordinary amount of labor. Workers had to cut the stalks by hand beneath the burning sun. The cane then had to be crushed and boiled within 24 hours. Otherwise, it would begin to rot. Europeans first enslaved indigenous communities. Millions died from disease and brutal working conditions. The plantation owners then looked across the Atlantic.
They looked toward Africa. The global demand for sugar became one of the greatest engines of the transatlantic slave trade. Across 4 centuries, an estimated 12 million African men, women, and children were kidnapped. They were forced into the terrifying holds of slave ships. Then, they were transported across the ocean. More than 70% were sent to colonies where sugar was a major product. Life on a sugar plantation was a living nightmare. The labor was relentless. Enormous crushing rollers extracted juice from the cane. Those machines regularly trapped the arms of exhausted workers. The boiling houses were unbearably hot. During the harvest, they operated 24 hours a day. Death rates were horrifyingly high.
Many plantation owners considered it cheaper to work enslaved people to death. They could purchase new captives instead of keeping the existing workers alive. Every spoonful of sugar stirred into tea in London, carried a human cost. That cost was paid in blood. By the 18th century, sugar had become one of the most valuable commodities on earth. It was the oil of its age. Entire wars were fought over small islands that produced sugar. British and French naval forces repeatedly fought in the Caribbean. At one point, France was willing to surrender its claim to Canada to preserve the small sugar island of Guadeloupe. Sugar profits helped build the great cities of Europe. They also helped finance industrial development.
But the people paying the greatest price had endured enough. In 1791, enslaved people rebelled in Saint-Domingue. It was the most profitable French sugar colony. Toussaint Louverture emerged as one of the revolution's most important leaders. The revolutionaries fought French forces, British forces, and Spanish forces. Against extraordinary odds, the revolution succeeded. The independent nation of Haiti was created. The victory sent shock waves through colonial empires. It proved that the sugar plantation system was vulnerable. Meanwhile, a geopolitical blockade created a problem for Napoleon Bonaparte in Europe. He needed another source of sugar. Napoleon heavily supported the development of the sugar beet. This root crop could grow in the colder soil of Europe.
Europe no longer depended entirely on Caribbean sugarcane. The abolitionist movement was also creating greater moral pressure. Britain banned the transatlantic slave trade in 1807. It later abolished slavery throughout most of its empire. The brutal petty-land slavery slowly began to weaken, but the global domination of sugar was only beginning. The Industrial Revolution transformed production. Steam-powered mills replaced wind and animal power. Large vacuum pans modernized the boiling process. Sugar became faster and cheaper to produce. Production also became more efficient. A luxury once reserved for royalty became an everyday product for the working class. Jam provided inexpensive calories.
So did sweet tea and baked foods. These products helped sustain factory workers during 14-hour shifts. Then industrial capitalism expanded the market. During the late 19th and early 20th centuries, the processed food industry exploded. In 1886, a pharmacist in Atlanta created a sweet syrup mixed with carbonated water. He called it Coca-Cola. Chocolate bars entered the market. So did breakfast cereals and hard candies. Sugar was no longer only a sweetener. It became an industrial preservative and a powerful flavor enhancer. By the middle of the 20th century, factories were producing mountains of sugar. The industry became deeply connected to governments. Large sugar companies developed into a powerful political lobbying force. At the same time, sugar consumption continued rising. Human bodies began showing the consequences. Doctors noticed alarming increases in obesity and heart disease. The sugar industry had a serious problem, so it paid for a solution.
During the 1960s, scientists were debating the causes of the rapid increase in heart attacks. Was dietary fat responsible, or was sugar the greater danger? Historical industry documents later revealed a serious shift of interest. The sugar industry paid Harvard researchers an amount equal to tens of thousands of dollars today. The researchers published an influential scientific review in 1967. The review minimized the possible risks of sugar. It directed public attention towards saturated fat. The result helped shape nutrition policy for decades. Governments encouraged people to eat low-fat food, but removing fat often made processed food taste unpleasant. Food companies needed another way to make those products appealing. They added more sugar. High fructose corn syrup entered the market in enormous quantities during the 1970s. Today, added sugars appear throughout the supermarket. They are found in yogurt, bread, pasta sauce, and salad dressing. The human body evolved in an environment where concentrated sweetness was difficult to find. It was not prepared for a constant flood of added sugar. Health consequences have become severe. More than 40% of adults around the world are now overweight. Rates of type 2 diabetes have risen dramatically. Highly sweet foods activate dopamine-based reward systems inside the brain. These systems can encourage people to continue seeking and consuming sugar.
For 10,000 years, sugarcane was simply a tall grass growing in the Pacific. The plant never asked to conquer the world. Human greed transformed it, so did industrialization, and the human desire for sweetness. Together, these forces created a global sugar empire. Sugar helped drive the enslavement of millions of people. It helped build the modern global economy. Today, excessive consumption contributes to diseases that kill millions every year. The next time you pick up a soda, remember that history. Remember it when you read the nutrition label on a loaf of bread. The history of sugar is not simply sweet, it is written through blood.